The Supreme Court has finally ruled that race-based gerrymandering is illegal. That's right, it's unconstitutional and against the American way of life. Now, obviously, this could have potentially massive implications, not just for the midterms, but for 2028 and beyond. In fact, some people are estimating that this could net the GOP 50 seats. Now, I know that sounds extreme. I know that sounds too good to be true. So let's start on the more conservative end here. This is what they said on CNN.
19 seats could be at risk all throughout the South. The question will be the timing. Is this a 2028 play? Is this a 2026 play? There are some primaries here coming up, not until later in the cycle. August 6th, there's one in Tennessee. That's Steve Cohen's seat. That's a minority district. That's in August 6th. It won the one Democratic seat there. The Jim Clyburn seat in South Carolina, that is the Democratic seat in South Carolina. That's a June 9th primary. Jamie, this shows you the ramifications long-term for this ruling.
Absolutely. Just think about that number, 19 seats in play. And let's look at this politically. Laura, you talked about confusion going into this race. We're worried about voter suppression. Apart from the long-term impact, we are going to see people take advantage of that confusion. There is going to be, these midterms are so high stakes that anybody who thinks they can take advantage, on the state level of this decision, there is going to be a scramble to see if they can, because each side thinks this is an existential midterm with the House especially.
Yeah.
You can almost hear the panic. You can hear just how distraught they are on CNN. Well, at MSNOW, it was even worse, and they had on a political analyst who believes that this could net the GOP 50 seats. But before we get to that, I just want to point out that this isn't the Supreme Court being overtly political. This isn't the Supreme Court bowing down to the whims of President Trump. The reality is that over the last decades, the Democrats have manipulated the law. They've found loopholes to create these race-based districts. And what's happened is they've squeezed all the blue out of these states as they can. You take a look at Illinois, you take a look at California, those states have been gerrymandered out the wazoo. And what Republicans have been trying to do is just come back to the center. Sure, you could argue that what they're doing in Texas or Florida is maybe political, but they're just trying to catch up to what the Democrats have done on the national scale. So what the Supreme Court is doing here is they're saying, no, what the Democrats have done for decades, it's wrong, it's unconstitutional, and in fact, it is flat out racist. So by undoing this, what they're doing is they're actually shifting these districts back to the center. Now, because shifting to the center from the far left looks like it's moving to the right, the Democrats are claiming, oh, this is the Republicans trying to play politics with the law. Oh, just look at how racist and political the Supreme Court is under President Trump. But in fact, the exact opposite is true. This Supreme Court is trying to get rid of racism. They're trying to undo the illegalities that the Democrats have forced upon the nation over the last few decades. You know things are headed in the right direction when on MSNOW, they are melting down over 50 seats now being in play.
So one expert on voting rights, Professor Nick Stephanopoulos at Harvard Law School, actually estimated that a ruling to this effect in Louisiana versus Callais could affect up to potentially 50 legislative districts. Now, that's not to say all of those states might redraw their districts so close to the midterm elections, but that does underscore what a significant effect this ruling will have on our democracy and who is able to obtain political power. So Florida, we know, has expressed interest in potentially doing some redistricting. Their initial plan for when they were going to do so was pushed back when we didn't have this decision last week. But my guess is they will get that process started now. And it's possible other states will follow. It's possible the president will invite other states to do more redistricting like he did when he invited them to do more partisan redistricting last year. So it remains to be seen exactly how many states might scramble to try to affect the upcoming midterm elections. But I think it's all but a certainty that many states will redraw the districts within the next few years, and certainly after the next redistricting cycle, in ways that will make it so much harder for voters of color to actually select the candidates of their choice.
Obviously, they're acting as if President Trump is just doing this out of the blue, but they're ignoring their own history. They're ignoring how they've attempted to squeeze as much blue as they can out of many states. I mean, just take a look at what Democrats just recently attempted to do in Virginia. Kamala Harris barely won the majority of the vote there. In Virginia, Kamala Harris got 52% of the vote. President Trump, meanwhile, got 47. So just a 5-point spread, almost a 50-50 state. So anyone with common sense would say, well, realistically, the representation there is going to be close to 50-50. But instead, Democrats wanted to turn it 10 Democrat seats to 1 Republican seat. So clearly, Democrats have been playing games here for far longer than the Republicans. Well, unfortunately for them, Republicans have finally wised up. Not only is it the Supreme Court decision, but Democrats have learned the hard way that, hey, Republicans can play ball too. Because just earlier today, I mean, you got to love the timing, right? The Supreme Court comes out with this ruling, and then just today in Florida, the House of Representatives in Florida passed their new map. It's now going to Ron DeSantis' desk, and this map could potentially give the GOP 4 additional seats in the state. And, well, one of the Democrats was having a complete meltdown on the floor of the House.
Our democracy, this is a violation of the Constitution. It is. It's a violation of the Constitution. I'm out of order, but y'all are doing illegal.
Representative Persons Mullica has waived closed. The question now recurs on final passage of HB 1D. The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will proceed to vote. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? The clerk will lock the machine and announce the vote.
83 yeas, 28 nays, Mr. Speaker.
Show the bill passes. Read the next bill.
None on the desk, Mr. Speaker.
As you can see, the Democrats are going absolutely wild. Well, Democrats, they're already claiming, it's predictable at this point, oh, this is racism. Oh, just take a look at the racist, white supremacist GOP. But I would actually like to read part of what Clarence Thomas wrote. Yes, the only black man on the Supreme Court. This is what he wrote in concurrence with Justice Gorsuch and the majority. I join the court's opinion in full. This court should never have interpreted Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 to effectively give racial groups an entitlement to roughly proportional representation. By doing so, the court led legislatures and courts to systematically divide the country into electoral districts along racial lines. Blacks were drawn into black districts, given black representatives. Hispanics were drawn into Hispanic districts and given Hispanic representatives, and so on. That interpretation rendered Section 2 repugnant to any nation that strives for the ideal of a color-blind constitution. Today's decision should largely put an end to this disastrous misadventure in voting rights jurisprudence. But it's not just that. I mean, it's common sense on the surface, right? My favorite thing is do the inverse. Imagine if the same thing were done with white people. Do you think Democrats would be fine with that? Do you think black voters would be fine with that? What if Republicans said, let's create a white majority district, and that way, only a white person can be elected to Congress? Would that not be racist? You can't have it both ways here, and that's what the Democrats are trying to do. But Clarence Thomas actually goes on here, as I explained more than 30 years ago. What I love about that small part of that sentence right there is he's really reiterating the fact that he's been consistent over all these years. And it's easy to be consistent when you're a constitutionalist, when you're an originalist, when you try to interpret the law as it was intended to be affected. I would go further and hold that Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act does not regulate districting at all. The relevant text prohibits states from imposing or applying a voting qualification, prerequisite to voting, or standard practice or procedure in a manner that results in a denial or abridgment of the right to vote based on race. How the states draw district lines does not fall within any of those categories. The words in Section 2 instead reach only reenactments that regulate citizens' access to the ballot or the processes for counting a ballot. They do not include a state's choice of one districting scheme over another. Therefore, no Section 2 challenge to districting should ever succeed. What an absolutely brilliant mind. Look, my favorite Supreme Court justice since I've been alive was Justice Scalia. But ever since Scalia passed, Clarence Thomas has taken the mantle. We are so lucky to have him. And I think a man of his caliber and intellect, I mean, truly, what would this court be without Clarence Thomas on it? Now, you know Republicans are right over the bullseye. You know that Democrats are in the wrong when immediately after this ruling, the Democrats aren't focused on, well, how can we ensure that things are fair? How can we ensure that all votes are equal, that we live in a colorblind society? No, the Democrats aren't doing that. Instead, they are on the record admitting that they want to turn California entirely blue. They want to turn Illinois entirely blue. And similar to Virginia, that's not the case. In California, at least 40% of the voters are Republican. So shouldn't 40% of the seats, shouldn't 40% of those Congress people also be Republican? Nope, that's not what the Democrats are advocating for at all.
What this decision says is that it values partisan politics over discrimination. It's really, 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 it takes us back. And so to the extent that it's inviting red states to totally take away all the Democratic seats and be totally red, it also encourages blue states to do exactly the same. So I can't speak for my chairwoman, but I take 52 seats from California. I sure would. And 17 seats from Illinois. Because at the end of the day, they're rigging this election to try to win. And we just can't sit back here and do nothing. We're going to play their game, and we're going to beat them at it. Yeah, that's what they say.
I mean, you heard it right there. They're basically playing politics. All they want is power because they're power hungry. And they want to rig the election results by making it entirely blue, 100%, even worse than what they were attempting in Virginia. Well, as you saw there, Hakeem Jeffries was coming up to the podium to speak, and his statements somehow were even worse than hers. But before we get to that, I would like to acknowledge the members of today's Governor's Club. They are Super Romer ×2, Peril LAG, JD, Lisa H, Jeremy 2001 Happy ×2, RL 1401. Always good to see you, Bob. Thank you. And Bunny at Ralph. These are people who give super thanks and tips to the channel. I'm glad that you're here and I'm glad that you enjoy. While Hakeem Jeffries, as usual, is attempting to delegitimize the Supreme Court. And look, you can't delegitimize the constitutional process just because you don't like the outcome, which, by the way, is the Supreme Court trying to protect the Constitution. So I think it's really disgusting, and I think it's worth calling out the fact that the Democrats are actually trying to tear down our institutions.
Today's decision by this illegitimate Supreme Court majority strikes a blow against the Voting Rights Act and is designed to undermine the ability of communities of color all across this country to elect their candidate of choice. But we're not here to step back. We're here to fight back.
Yes.
Now, when this decision came out earlier today, it's an unacceptable decision, but not an unexpected decision. Because this isn't even really the Roberts Court. It's the Trump Court.
Yes.
And what we would expect from the Trump Court is an effort to continue their scheme to suppress the vote and rig the midterm elections and beyond. Because these extremists have failed America in every possible way. They failed on the economy, they failed on health care, they're failing as it relates to this reckless and costly war of choice. The extremists have completely and totally failed America.
That's right.
So they've concluded.
Isn't it interesting that instead of arguing the merits of the case, instead of attempting to debunk what Clarence Thomas wrote, I mean, again, brilliantly written, they're not debunking anything that the Supreme Court has ruled on. Instead, they're launching attacks at it. Oh, it's the Trump Supreme Court. That is intentional, because what they're doing is not only are they undermining the institution, they're attempting to politicize it, and it makes it easier for them to destroy it. That is all by design. It's all intentional, and it's absolutely disgusting. As always, though, all of this is just my analysis and commentary. That's what's happening in the world of politics from my point of view, and I would love to hear from you. So on CNN, they are saying that this could net the GOP 19 seats. Over on MSNOW, they're saying it could be up to 50 seats. What are your predictions? How much will things correct? What will the correction be here? How many seats will the GOP gain? And look, I'm not going to put a timeline on it. It could be the midterms, 2028, beyond. But what do you think that final number will be? Let me know down in the comments. And the most important part, why? If you haven't already, please be sure to leave me a thumbs up. I know it's a simple thing to ask for, but it really does help me reach more viewers like you in the algorithm. Be sure to smash that subscribe button and to check out one of these videos.